Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our new webinar. My name is Arturo Coego. I am the coordinator of the Housing First Europe Hub. Today is a very special day because we have with us Anke Jansen from the Netherlands. She's the CEO and founder of Housing First Netherlands and is the co-writer of the article from the European Journal of Homelessness, Housing First as a System Approach. What does this require from the Netherlands? It's a pleasure to have her today with us. Good morning, Anke. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Very fine.
So this is part of our webinar series on these articles on the European Journal on Homelessness. You can find the link on the chat if you want to read it. But we will have this opportunity now to discuss about it. So in the first place, Anke Jansen will introduce a little bit the highlights of the article and do a presentation about housing first and systems change in the Netherlands. And then we will have the opportunity to have a discussion, a Q&A session. So feel free to send us some questions on our Q&A box right on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, just right at the left of sharing screen bottom. Feel free to say hi on the chat to everyone, but also if you want to make questions, make sure that you do it through the Q&A box, because it's way easier for us to monitor all the questions. If you for some reason want to speak, and so you just have to raise your hand, we will pass you the floor to make this a conversation and a dialogue presentation from Anke. So thanks everyone one more time for being here with us today, and I'll pass the floor to Anke.
Thank you, Arturo. Hello, everyone. I'll share my screen in a minute. First, I'm happy to be here. I hope I can help you further with your thoughts about system change. Maybe it's good to realize that the time that we wrote the article is more than a year ago, and in the meantime, we have developed further. So in the presentation, you also find some new information. Let's start. You see the start dia, which is just only the title. This is me. Maybe you know me. I am, just as Arturo said, co-founder of Housing First Netherlands. And what we do as our foundation started, we do advocacy, consultancy, learning, and research and development. We lead and inspire the Dutch Housing First movement. We do participate in several coalitions on solving homelessness, and we represent and work with people with lived experience. And we offer knowledge and technical assistance in the field. Of course, all of that is focused on the ambition to solve homelessness in the near future. And in this webinar, I present you, in line with our article, what our ideas are. And as I said, it is work in development, so it's not complete at all, and it's not done yet. So I think knowledge will develop in time, because the system change and the transition that is needed to realize the system change is quite complex. We see the further we go, how the complex system works and how transition can be evolved through rules, policy, people, organization, communities, and also cultural elements in society do have impact on the transition. Here I show you the overview of my presentation. I'll start with some context, some Dutch context, so you can understand how where we come from and where we are into right now. I show you some milestones that we realized to get where we are nowadays. And then, in line with the 8 core principles of Housing First, the model approach, I'll reflect on what's necessary to create a change. And I'll end with a wrap-up and dialogue with you, and I'm happy to have questions and have a good dialogue with you together. Then the Dutch context. In the Netherlands, we have a decentralized system, which means that central government can inspire local governments towards movement, but cannot force it. Of course, legacy is made by central government, money is divided by them, so they do have influence, but local governments have the power and tools to be serious about it or not. The national intention can be made and is made, but the development of Housing First depends on a variety of political opinions, institutions, knowledge and capacity. And then the trend of homelessness, what we see in the Netherlands is that the 1st of January 2023, there were 30,600 homeless people based on an estimation. A year earlier, this was 26,600. So the numbers of homeless people are increasing based on estimation. But these numbers are very much criticized. Because of the estimation, they don't count people older than 65 or younger than 18. And we have advocated that this is a real problem when we do not know how many people are homeless or will be homeless in the near future. We cannot find the right solution and create the policy that is needed. So a recent study is started to on the ethos light definition, which counts real people and show real numbers. And in this year, 2024, 55 municipalities are starting with this new counting, ethos light. This makes it really valuable to create a real support base for transition. And the first studies are done in last year, 2023, and they already show us many more people, among a quarter of young people, more families and more women than was assumed in earlier policies. And this new counting is a very recent development that can really lead to adequate policies and plans. So that's a really positive development. Also, there has been a successful start of Housing First since 2006, and then I speak about the model approach, but that has made the support base to move towards a system approach. Till now, a really little group has access to Housing First, and we have advocated for the broader group, homeless people, for all homeless people to get access to Housing First. But we are now in the start of that, and most people still need to go through the dominant staircase model. Housing First Nederland as the foundation started in 2013 as a network group, and we shared together knowledge and development, and since 2022 we are a foundation, and we can pioneer and have a real position in the field to stand up for Housing First, and we played a crucial role in what you see in the picture, the National Action Plan on Homelessness, Housing First. And how we get there was that based on the results of the work that we did since 2006, we did research, we showed the results, we spoke about it on many congresses, and also we did research on the impact on society, economy, stakeholders, tenants, and we saw that in the Netherlands every spent euro saves 2 for adults, and for youngsters even 3.5. And we know that Housing First works nowadays. There is a support base. People do acknowledge the power and the efficiency and the effectivity of Housing First. One of the results was that the tenants appreciate the support that they were given with an 8.7, so which is really high, and which gives us also a lot of position on the table. And in 2022 we were far enough to step towards central government with all this knowledge, and we took them to a symposium from the Housing First Europe Hub about Housing First system change. And after that there was really a good flow to develop together and start the conversation about Housing First as a system approach, which resulted in the National Action Plan. So I think that our international community and our national work together made it possible to get where we are today. I think that that's really honorable to work in this field and to exchange and to support each other. And I think the Netherlands is quite a good example to look at what it can mean and what kind of impact you can have on the international work as well. So that was really a starting point for further boosting the transition, and for us a real milestone in achieving what we worked for in all those years. And then there was this huge and complex challenge that we didn't even notice yet what was coming on our tables. So we needed to develop ourselves a lot of knowledge. We needed to develop our foundation and to cooperate with many more people than we did before. So yeah, it's been a challenging year. And then let's see, this is the next slide, just to show you a little bit of history, where we you can see where the Housing First teams are in the picture. So we do have quite a huge amount of teams, but still it is small. So the teams do have maybe 10 tenants or 20 or 30 or 50. In the bigger cities it is more, but most people do still go to shelters, as I said. So you also see that we started with Housing for Youth. We do have now 8 teams, but it should be 44, because we do have 44 bigger municipalities, and you can see how many organizations roughly are working already with Housing First. And also I have made a rough counting that only 6% of the homeless population has access to Housing First. So for the majority of support for homeless people, they receive temporary shelter, transitional housing, and so people with vulnerable circumstances and lives do live in the most vulnerable situations nowadays. We all know that managing homelessness is expensive and ineffective, and I think also that's what I'd like to mention too, because of the international work, but also the example of Finland that we very often address here, that it is possible to decrease homelessness when you really implement a system approach and learn from other countries how they have added to the challenges. So for us, that has been quite a learning experience. And then, yes, I assume you all know the core principles of Housing First. So I'll walk with you through each of them, and I'll let you know what our reflection is on. And we took this as a framework for reflection on system change, and we have seen now, after some reflection work, that this is not the best framework to have for system change. So we are building on a new framework, but this is where we started. Okay, then I'll start with housing as a human right. What's the current situation is that we do have a really housing crisis, and there is too little transformation and construction of property nowadays. There is attention on it, but it's going way too slow. And we do have rising prices on the market due to disastrous politics, to be sorry, but it is just like that. Not promoting the development of social housing, promoting to invest in an interesting international investment climate. Housing has become an investment object in the Netherlands nowadays. So the prices are way too high, building is very expensive, and we don't have a lot of ground to build on, so that's also an obstacle for quick building. And this crisis has made a few very rich and destroys many human lives every day. And there is a competition that comes along with it among many vulnerable groups, which make the pressure very high, and have conversations that are really kind of awkward, because everybody deserves a house, but not everyone can have one. So we need to choose who goes first and why, which is really painful. Also, the Dutch government undertake a best effort obligation according to legal rights to achieve sufficient housing, but no legal right to a home can be claimed. So it is kind of a balloon with air, but it's nothing that people who are homeless can build on or can trust touched on. The Netherlands does have a large social housing stock. However, this is shrinking and private rent is unachievable nowadays for many. So this is really a really painful situation, and that goes beyond our influence for most of the impact that we can make. But of course, we do stand up for building, transforming, splitting housing. So housing has become a priority again due to many groups who do take a stand for this. A new legacy is made and policies are engaged to create solutions and put effort in it. So one example is that we have now, when there is planning for sufficient social housing, at least 30% needs to be for a vulnerable group. That's a new legacy, and so there are many more, there are more upcoming legacies who need to give more access to vulnerable groups. And then also we have in the vulnerable groups many more people than homeless people, so still there is a competition among the vulnerable groups. And then also there is still a culture when we give access to housing, we do this with preconditions, and there needs to be a knowledge and a cultural change that people do have that housing is a basic human right and that they should have access to it no matter what. Then the second core principle, choice and direction, which is for the Dutch society and stakeholders quite a challenging one as well, because we do come from a culture where we think that we know what's best for one, especially when one seems to be vulnerable or in a vulnerable situation. So we want to tell them what to do, what steps to make, which is of course conflicting the values of housing first. And so therefore we need to invest in capacity and knowledge building, in the willingness to listen and learn and trust and respect autonomy, because autonomy is for housing first key. Sometimes we have conversations in the field with people who worry about nuisance or worry about livability in the neighborhood or about the rent payment. And also that's a subject for us to speak about and to be aware of. Recent research shows that nuisance among housing first is equal to non-housing first tenants. So it is a lot about emotion and about thoughts, what might happen maybe. And also people do remember where it has gone wrong much longer than all the people where it went very well. And these pictures we have to break down and build on new pictures and a new story about how housing first is successful for the most people, that we do give support and make that as a, for example, we want to start a campaign to showcase all the positive impact that housing first makes and the possibilities if we would scale it up and we would build on a system change. What would this mean for society and for the future of our living together, our politics, all these kind of values that are around it. Also, we emphasize everywhere we go that for people with lived experience, so the possibility to get back to work in the field of policy making on homelessness or in the support teams, and this is not obvious or easy for everybody in the field or logic right away, but we do showcase how it can work. We do work ourselves with people with lived experience, and we do advocate for it, and I think that there we have a lot of value to add into this transition. So this transition is technical, and it's also about atmosphere where we cooperate and are able and willing to change our thoughts and ideas about people who have become homeless, what their possibilities probably are or not, and how valuable they are for society. And also we need the capacity to solve this problem together. Then we have the second principle, separate housing and care. I'm sorry, it's the third. Nowadays, we still have different types of contracts in the Netherlands for housing. We do limit access, and in the minds of many people, still need to deserve the next step, like in a staircase model. Of course, in Housing First, we have been able to stop this, not completely, but the movement is going very well. But for the system approach, we are having challenges here, that it's not about good behavior or trust building in front of giving access to housing or readiness to housing. We start with housing, and from there we build on relationship, on trust, on recovery, and inclusion. I think in the small pilots that we were able to step by step build a trust base that people could live in a house immediately from the street. Now we move towards, hey, all these people will have access to housing, but we want to move out the shelters in their trajectory. That would be cheaper, right? And would be more effective, right? So that's another way of looking at it, how we want to inspire our stakeholders. An example to achieve this is that we are looking for a guarantee fund, and we speak about a national help desk to address questions and complaints about the rental contracts for Housing First, because we also need to have insight in how does it really go, where is still hesitation, where is support needed, is it a financial reason, is it an emotional reason, is it a risk reason? So we first want to have more insight in what's happening in the field of the contracts, and then we can go on with the advocacy and the tools that are needed to get this move on. One of the things that are done already is that what you see on the picture, it is a guidance towards a contract on their own. A sustainable and independent living contract. And this guidance is built with many stakeholders, which gave a lot of discussion on how is this possible. We cannot do this. We cannot give a contract, which was really necessary to create the movement and to inspire towards the contract that we are really looking for. Still, in the Housing First teams in the Netherlands, we have a lot of intermediate rental contracts where the healthcare providers is the owner or the rent master of the department. So also in Housing First model approach, we need to work on this, and in the system approach even more. But we see that now in this field there is quite some movement and discussion going on, which we are really grateful for. And it means also for us that the work we do does have an impact. And also we say that you need to find a way to create access to a legal justice system for all these people, because nowadays that is a problem. You cannot go anywhere. Okay. Also, the continuity in finance for the support team is quite a challenge, because municipalities do have financial problems on some areas, and they think, for example, oh, you can give Housing First for 3.5 hours a week, right? And now for the model approach, it is it is for us a no-go. But for the system approach, of course, you can do Housing First on a lower scale of intensity from the Housing First team. Okay, then the next one is the restore orientation, or recovery, as we maybe call it more in English. There is a lot of variety among support workers in the system, in the view on recovery and how active they are in recruiting team members with lived experience. I think that the more progressive teams are quite aware and moving on this theme. Also, we meet teams that don't find ways or miss the urgency to explore on recovery as well as on experienced experts. And this movement is really ongoing, but not far as we wish, and not as far as is necessary to create the best teams, the quality, and also the capacity that we need for upscaling Housing First. So continuous support on this movement, showcasing successes, is really necessary, both for the quality and the capacity, because there's an enormous potential that is not yet used. So that's really a thing to be sorry for. Then the next is harm reduction. For Housing First is really common, but for the broader teams, support teams, it's relatively unknown still. Also, we saw that this principle is really specific for support teams and therefore not really useful for the framework, as we look at the system approach that we need also a framework for. So what we do see is that support workers need knowledge building on this. So to be aware of harm reduction and to know how to handle in those situations. And also what we see is that support workers need to speak up about their profession and their work towards the stakeholders and also to create a support base in society. So I think they are much too shy for the hard work that they do and the impact that they make. So I'd love to empower those teams and speak up and be also aware of how they manage themselves towards stakeholders or financial parties like municipalities. So I often use the example that if a doctor who's a heart operator operating people would be asked by the financial party, hey, can you do it in half the time? What would he say? And everybody's laughing then because it seems so ridiculous that one who's not a professional would say you can do your work in half time, right? And I say that's the way of looking at it. It is your profession and you should advise them and be also aware of what you give away and therefore give away the best support for people who really need it. So I think there is some empowerment and also knowledge building necessary for the Housing First support workers, which should start at the education institutes and also at the current teams. Okay, then active involvement without coercion. Here we see from Housing First that the most challenge is in the cooperation with the system. So where it's mainstream in the Netherlands to manage risks, in many ways, Housing First focuses on hope, trust, and positivity. And here again, we see that a new framework is needed for stakeholders and also knowledge building for social workers in the sector of Housing First as a system approach, which we think is key element again. Then we have the next core principle, person-oriented trajectory. Here we have difficulties with different finances and the lack of integrated strategy. For example, when one comes into Housing First and is ready maybe for treatment, you might be charged to wait for 8 months or so, and that's can be a problem even because if nuisance do occur, we want to be quick, and so this is really a problem. Also, when you think of scaling up Housing First, we do know that the nuisance is not so much as in Housing First, but anyhow, if you want to give one a fair chance to be part of society, you need to have access to healthcare and treatment that you need. So therefore, we do have this challenge. Then also for Housing First, we do know that flexibility and 24/7 support at home is obvious, but in the current teams who work in this field of system change, it is not common yet. So therefore, again, education is necessary and also the adequate financing. And that's difficult because we have supply-oriented support, not yet, because of bureaucracy and thoughts about how one should live, which steps one should take, at what time one should take a step. So therefore, also this cultural change is a subject that we do give attention to. And comparable with the other two previous core principles, this is quite specific for the Housing First teams and not for the whole system change field. So therefore, we thought that we need to make a new framework as well. Right, then we have the next one, flexible support for as long as needed. A little bit similar to the last ones, that also this is specific for the Housing First team, but needs to be facilitated in the field. So on the budgets, on the bureaucracy, so it needs to be possible to have a continuity in support. Also because if we don't, it will damage the support base of Housing First, the model and both the system approach. So therefore, financial trust building, relationship and flexibility are necessary. Then we go to the wrap up and challenges. I think I just read the headlines of what I just spoke about, what needs to have the most attention, not especially from us, but in general for the system approach. So no Housing First without housing, of course. We have heard this many times, but it is so true. So building, buying, transforming affordable housing is absolutely key, and give homeless people access and also prevention. I did not mention this yet very much, but of course prevention is really key, that people will not become homeless at all. Then structural knowledge building is necessary, both on the level of stakeholders, support teams, and the educational institutes like university, high school, and any institutions that do educate social workers in the Netherlands. Then what we really need is the political responsibility, awareness on the urgency of homelessness and stigma, because when we don't have their support on this, we go everywhere and nowhere. So there needs to be a real focus, and one who does take the responsibility in the political field to stand up for homeless people and the access to housing and housing as a human right. So wherever in the international field a political person stands up for Housing First or homeless people, we need to showcase it also in the Netherlands. Just bring on if you do have. Also, the plan that we have, the National Action Plan on Homelessness, Housing First, needs targets and monitoring, which we do think is organized way too little or not very effective, I would say. And what we think is that the investment in the transformation should be way more. So far, it is too little to realize the target of 2030 and end homelessness. So we are doing a good job, and we can provoke for Housing First, and we do create movements, but not enough at all. We need Housing First Netherlands should be much bigger, and no investment in the shelters anymore. Completely investment in this new situation and transformation is necessary. Also, we need to create a legal protection system, as I spoke about, for homeless people and people in Housing First services. And we need to maintain adequate finance for the current model-based Housing First teams to keep them strong. So to keep a good support base and to keep them provided with money and knowledge and power to do the work that they do every day. And then I also mentioned that the cooperation and partnerships on all levels is really a huge job. that we work on every day with many people, and which will take years to get there. So also our realization of how big this job is, has been took quite some time. This is my last sheet. I'll stop sharing and then we can go to the dialogue.
Thanks for that presentation. It was lovely to hear you. Thanks for all the explanations about the Netherlands, about the Dutch context, and about the developments. We have 2 questions on our Q&A box. So let's start with this moment of the webinar where we can start the discussion after your presentation. So we have a first question from Daniel Castro Torres. Daniel from Paris, from the D Hall. He's asking, how is Housing First being spread through social workers schools in the Netherlands? And what is the reaction of more experienced social workers when we ask them to change previous paradigms on helping the homeless? Really interesting question.
Yeah, that's a super question. The first question is answer. So on the social worker schools, there is not yet much to do about Housing First. So that's one of the challenges that system needs to transform too. But it is really a huge job because it is built in all rules, procedures, with a lot of people involved. And then the second question was about peer support workers, how they are added in this paradigm shift. Now, it is one of the pillars in the National Action Plan. So the vision and the support base on national level is clear. However, in the field, it is complex. There are teams who are progressive and they do have peer support workers and recruit them and support them and work together and learn together. So the movement is there. And also, I think many more teams do not have the right insights and the right attitude to recruit peer support workers. And therefore, we need to keep advocating for this. So it is really not common yet, but it is ongoing.
The second part of the question was also about the reaction of more experienced social workers. So how they react on Housing First, how they react on this change of paradigm when it comes to tackle homelessness.
Yeah, they have been able to participate in the policy making of the plan. They stood up for themselves on Congress, where Juha Kakin was also telling about system approach Housing First, and then they get on the stage and they said, whoa, this is not going to happen without us. And so we empowered them to stood up, and they did, which was really great. And they had a crucial role in the development of the National Action Plan. Also, on the local level, there is not always paid for their time. It is not very common for many. So then they call me and they say, hey, can your lived experience expert come to us next week or tomorrow, because we have a meeting and we need someone there. So it is like not professional at all. And so it's really, I think, in a beginning stage, but the awareness that people with lived experience should participate in policy making and also in the support teams is there. So we have a good starting point to work further on, and I think it's really nice and challenging, and I'm happy that we are there already, because this has been quite difficult earlier days. Yeah,
that's really nice. We have a second question from Emilia Postolage. She says, many thanks for the presentation. You referred to the 2023-2030 strategy and to current challenges. Is there any area from the strategy where you see progress today compared to the moment it was adopted?
I think that last year there has become much more awareness on many levels that this is a real huge problem, and that we do need, for example, people with lived experience, and that we do need to work on knowledge building, that we do need to work on legacy, access to legacy for this. And also the coalition groups on homelessness advocating for this are getting stronger and stronger, and we do work together. We do make impact also on legacy making, which was 4 or 5 years ago unimaginable. So we are growing and getting stronger, and I think that this really is the base that we need to create to really get the movement going on.
Thanks, Anke. And then we have time for one more question. Ben Ricky from Paris, he says, hey Anke, you said that the 8 principles weren't necessarily the best way to think through a systems level shift to a housing-led approach. He totally agrees. Did you develop another framework?
We are this is under construction, so we are developing a new framework. I made a rough I don't know, can you see it?
Yeah.
I was painting. So we are developing in this and making our minds up, and how would it work for other stakeholders as well who are not really involved in harm reduction or so. So and also the language, we are really aware that language for transition is important. So it should be easy to read it and be aware of, oh, that's about it. That's easy. I can work with that. But also don't lose the evidence-based qualities that we have in the model approach. So that's the challenge that we stand for. So maybe if you do have something, Ben, I am really curious.
So thanks, Ben, for the question, and thanks, Anke, for your answers. I think we can call it a day for this webinar. I would like to thank all of our participants in the question box, and all the people that attended the webinar for their support. But especially, I would like to thank Leonie Pail, working behind the scenes, and especially to you, to Anke Jansen, for your time preparing this webinar and being with us today and giving us such an amazing presentation about the context on the Netherlands and the situation of housing first and systems change. So we will upload some highlights of this webinar and also the whole webinar to our YouTube channel. You can find our social media on the chat right now. So thanks for your time, everyone, today, and see you next week on the 10th of April, where we'll have time to talk about Italy, housing first, and also systems change as well. So see you soon. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.